There's this massive invisible river flowing from Canada into the United States, but it's not made of water. It's made of garbage. And this constant stream of trash has sparked a huge conflict between two neighbors, turning what was once a simple business arrangement into a potential trade war. So just how big are we talking? Get this, 3.46 million tons. That's how much trash crosses the border from Ontario into just one single U.S. state, Michigan. Every single year. To give you an idea of what that actually looks like, we're talking about almost 400 tractor trailers packed with waste crossing the border every day. This is a massive billion-dollar industry built on a very simple premise. Ontario needs to get rid of its garbage, and Michigan has been willing to take it. So how in the world did we get here? Here's what we're going to break down. We'll trace this river of trash back to its source. We'll look at the incredible economic force that's pulling it south. The two leaders were now locked in a political chess match over it. The international treaty that says you can't just stop it. And finally, the big crisis that's brewing on both sides of the border. Okay, first things first, let's really get our heads around the sheer volume of this trash flow. You'd probably assume that most of the garbage in a state comes from that state, right? Well, for Michigan, the numbers tell a very, very different story. Now, while most of Michigan's trash is its own, just look at that slice coming from Canada. A full 14% of all waste buried in the state's landfills comes from Ontario. That means roughly 1 out of every 7 tons of garbage being dumped in Michigan is imported, and Canada is by far the biggest source. And what's the result of all this? Well, Michigan now puts more garbage into landfills per person than any other state in the entire country. And that's not just a feeling. Federal data shows they are 72% above the national average. It's a huge number. So this begs the big question, right? Why? Why would a whole Canadian province spend millions of dollars to truck its garbage hundreds of miles into another country? The answer is almost laughably simple. It's just so cheap. And this really is the question at the heart of the entire conflict. It's not just about being close or being convenient. It's all about a powerful economic incentive that has basically turned the entire regional waste market completely upside down. And here's that incentive in black and white. This is the tipping fee. It's a state tax on every ton of garbage dumped. Look at Michigan, 36 cents. Just 36 cents. Now look at its neighbors. Ohio charges almost $5. Wisconsin, $13. This tiny little fee has acted like a giant economic magnet, pulling in trash from everywhere, but especially from Ontario. This kind of economic reality was bound to create a political showdown, and it has, pitting two very powerful leaders directly against each other, Michigan's Governor Gretchen Whitmer and Ontario's Premier Doug Ford.
And their strategies could not be more different. On one side, Governor Whitmer wants to basically shut off that magnet by jacking the tipping fee up to $5. She'd then use that new cash to clean up Michigan. On the other side, Premier Ford sees that coming, or even worse, a federal ban. So he's trying to fast-track new landfills in Ontario, framing it as an economic security issue. Basically, one solution is the other's total nightmare.
And just to be clear, when Governor Whitmer talks about shutting off the magnet, she is not talking about a small tweak. This is a 1,289% increase in the fee. It's specifically designed to make dumping in Michigan so expensive that it's just not worth the trip for those Canadian trash haulers anymore. And here you can hear it in Premier Ford's own words. This is his justification for these emergency measures. He's using the threat of a U.S. trade war to push for what he calls self-reliance. He's basically saying that Ontario is way too dependent on this American safety valve, and that dependency has now become a major weakness. This timeline really shows you why both sides are feeling the heat. Michigan has only about 21 years of landfill space left if things keep going like this. But look at Ontario. If the U.S. border closes tomorrow, they run out of space by 2034. That's just a handful of years from now. Even if they can keep exporting, they're tapped out by 2037. The clock is ticking for everyone, but for Ontario, it is ticking much, much faster. So all of this leads to a very logical question. If this is such a big problem, why doesn't Michigan just stop it? Well, the answer isn't about environmental policy. It's buried in the super complicated world of international trade law. It seems like the most obvious solution, right? A state should have control over what gets dumped inside its own borders. But it can't. And the reason for that is central to how all of North American trade actually works. Okay, the entire issue really hangs on this one kind of bizarre legal fact. Under the law, trash isn't treated like trash. It's considered a commodity. So under the U.S. Constitution and trade deals like the USMCA, garbage is basically a commercial good, just like lumber or steel. And you can't just block a product from another country because of where it came from. And that one little detail has huge consequences. It means Michigan can't just pass a law that says no Canadian garbage allowed. It also means that any fee hike, like the one Governor Whitmer wants, has to apply to everybody, including Michigan residents. And that's why this whole fight is about a 36-cent fee instead of being thought at the border. So you've got the economics, the politics, and the weird trade laws, and all of these things are now converging on a single high-stakes deadline that could trigger a full-blown crisis. So here's the end game. Michigan is running out of places to put trash. Ontario is facing a potential catastrophe if their main option gets shut down. And these two kind of local problems are on a direct collision course to blow up on the international stage in July 2026. That's when the whole North American trade agreement is up for review. So what's the bottom line here? It means that trash isn't just trash anymore. For Michigan, it's a finite resource that's being used up for cheap. For Ontario, it's a critical vulnerability. Those 3.46 million tons of waste have become a powerful bargaining chip in a much bigger, much more complicated game. And all of this leaves us with one final, unavoidable question. As these two friendly neighbors start running out of room to bury their mistakes, is the simple act of taking out the trash about to become the next flashpoint in a trade war?